The dawn in South Africa's Sabi Sand Game Reserve is never an ordinary sight. It is a painting rendered in gold and terracotta, where life is both fiercely abundant and brutally unforgiving. Jake Carter, a seasoned ranger who had crossed the threshold of 40, often called Sabi Sand his harshest teacher. He had witnessed nature's most savage hunts and its most tender moments of love. That morning, as Jake's trusty old Jeep rolled onto the familiar trail, with the morning mist still clinging to the elephant grass, he felt an unusual stillness. It was not the stillness of peace, but a taut silence, as if the entire bush was holding its breath. And then he saw it, a flash of pure, unnatural white, gleaming amidst the sparse, sun-bleached vegetation. It stood right in the middle of the track, small, trembling, and utterly out of place. Jake tightened his grip on the steering wheel. This was no ordinary lost animal. It was an albino lion cub, a creature of both legendary beauty and extreme vulnerability in this harsh landscape. Its ghostly white coat, beautiful in human eyes, was a death sentence in the eyes of predators. It wasn't fleeing, it was pleading. Jake wondered what had caused this solitary, fragile being to abandon the protection of its pride. And could Jake embark on an impossible journey to save a life that nature seemed to have decreed must be lost? A deep silence enveloped Sabi Sand, broken only by the frantic thumping of Jake Carter's heart. At a distance of about 50 meters, the cub, which Jake silently named Kian, stared directly at him with large, pale yellow, confused eyes. Kian was clearly not just lost. He was exhausted. His small body was caked in dust, and his ribs were visible beneath his white fur. Jake's greatest threat was not Kian. It was Kian's mother. Instinct told him a protective lioness could be lurking anywhere in the dense thicket. A small sound, an abrupt movement, could turn a rescue attempt into a life-or-death confrontation. Jake's strategy was absolute stillness. Slowly, he turned off the Jeep's engine, an act showing submission and non-aggression. He kept his distance, speaking in a low, gentle, almost lullaby-like voice, recounting old stories of the bush to reassure both Kian and himself. After a few tense minutes, Jake took his first risky action. He slowly placed his rifle on the floor of the vehicle, showing he meant no harm. He removed his broad-brimmed hat, revealing his face, then pulled out his water bottle and poured a little into a plastic canteen lid. He pushed the lid towards the ground with a small stick, maintaining minimal distance. Kian hesitated. He swayed, took a trembling step forward, and then suddenly collapsed near the puddle of water. It was an admission by action. He was not scared or defensive. He was too exhausted to continue. In that moment, Jake made a decision that changed everything. He accepted the risk, knowing that if the mother lion appeared, he would have no time to react. Jake slowly stepped out of the car, his hands gently raised. He approached, not meeting Kian's eyes, but focusing on the action. Jake gently knelt down and, using his spare flannel shirt, carefully lifted Kian's small, hot, dusty body. There was no resistance. Instead, Kian nestled into the warmth, an act of absolute trust. Jake's hand felt the cub's weak, rapid, bird-like heartbeat. It was the impossible handshake between man and a wild creature. Upon returning to the ranger station, Kian was immediately transferred to the field clinic. The veterinarian quickly examined him and confirmed no injuries, only severe dehydration and malnutrition. More importantly, the vet explained that albino lion cubs often struggle to survive in the wild because their conspicuous coat makes them easy targets for other predators, and sometimes they are rejected by their pride due to their difference. Jake understood that Kian wasn't just lost, he might have been abandoned. He was a bright spot, a danger signal in the savannah. Jake's job was now not just a rescue mission, but a moral obligation to a discarded creature. That sense of responsibility weighed heavily on his shoulders, determined to give Kian the chance at survival that nature seemed to have taken away. The Sabi Sand Field Clinic became Kian's temporary home. Life here lacked the chaos of the bush, replaced instead by the steady rhythm of relentless care. Jake took on this difficult and meticulous task himself. He detailed the care process: bottle feeding every 4 hours, gentle cleaning to protect his sensitive skin from the sun and infection, and continuous vigilance against illness. Jake was more than a rescuer. He became Kian's reluctant guardian. He began sleeping on a cot placed outside the temporary isolation cage. He found peace in Kian's small breaths. He often talked to the cub, telling him old stories of the bush, of the wisdom of the great beasts, treating Kian not just as a wild animal, but as a scared, vulnerable soul. One evening, as Jake was changing the warm blanket, Kian gently nudged his wet nose against Jake's hand. It was a moment of deep spiritual confirmation. Jake realized that in his isolation, Kian had placed absolute trust in humans. "I've seen the courage of a fighting male lion, but I've never seen trust this pure," he mused. The veterinarian further explained Kian's condition. Albino lions don't always die young, but they face more health issues. With full support, they can thrive. However, the greatest challenge was reintegration, a near impossible feat. This created the core conflict. How could a creature with this oversized color be returned to a safe wildlife? Jake knew he couldn't raise Kian as a pet. His destiny had to be the bush. But returning him meant exposing him to danger. Based on Kian's incredible recovery strength, a decision was made. Kian must be returned to his pride. Jake used data from camera traps and information from the tracking team to pinpoint the mother lion's exact territory. This was Kian's only chance for a truly wild life, but the risk of rejection by his mother or other pride members remained a heavy burden. Jake knew that for Kian to survive, he had to do something harder than rescue: believe in the instinct of a mother lion. That morning, the air in the Sabi Sand Game Reserve was thick with anticipation. This was more than a release mission. It was the moment of truth for Kian's fate. Jake and a small team, consisting of the vet and a seasoned tracker, drove deep into the hunting area that GPS data confirmed was the lioness pride's territory. The Jeep moved slowly along the muddy roads by the Oliphant's River. The early morning mist was still dense, shrouding the river, creating an ethereal but risky backdrop. Jake carried Kian in a transport crate lined with old blankets, infused with the smell of the bush and his own scent. He knew Kian was accustomed to the human smell, but the natural smell of the bush was crucial. The team found an open patch of ground near a large acacia bush where they had a good view. They placed the crate down, ensuring the door faced the area where the pride often moved. They retreated about 100 meters, using binoculars and a radio. The tension was palpable. Time seemed to stand still. The calls of small birds, the rustling of wind in the grass, all were overshadowed by the silence of waiting. Every minute that passed was an agony. And then, cutting through the silky mist, a powerful, majestic silhouette appeared. It was the mother lion. She was large, cautious, her ears lowered in suspicion. She slowly approached, sniffing the air. Kian's scent, mixed with human smell and formula, might confuse her. The mother lion came close to the crate. She let out a small, probing growl, then began circling the crate. Jake was practically holding his breath. This was the moment of judgment. Would she recognize the distinct scent of her cub, or would she only see a sick, strange outcast? A burden? After a long pause, the mother lion emitted a deep, resonant call, a sound that vibrated in the listener's chest. Kian, still inside the crate, responded with a small, high-pitched, weak meow. That sound resolved all doubt. The mother lion gently but firmly used her nose to push the crate door open. Kian stumbled out, his tiny legs still slightly shaking, but his eyes full of life and recognition. He darted straight towards his mother. The mother lion did not hesitate. She lowered her head and began to lick Kian's fur tenderly, her head many times larger than Kian's tiny body. Their gentle rumbling echoed like the whisper of maternal love in the quiet wilderness. Moments later, two slightly older cubs appeared, surrounding Kian, licking their lost sibling. Jake watched from a distance, tears blurring his binoculars. He hadn't just saved a lion cub, he had mended a family. Kian wasn't rejected. He was just too weak and lost. The presence of his mother and siblings proved it. Through his binoculars, Jake witnessed the final scene. The lion family huddled together, the sunrise piercing through the leaves, creating a warm golden streak that enveloped them. Kian's white streak was a striking focal point, a symbol of resilience amidst the tawny color of his siblings. He had returned to where he belonged, a fragile life given a second chance thanks to the compassionate hand of a human and the fierce instinct of a mother. Jake slowly lowered his binoculars, a profound sense of peace spreading within him. He was speechless, only turning to his colleague and nodding lightly. They packed up the crate, leaving the patch of ground as silent as if nothing had ever happened. Jake didn't feel like a hero. He was just a ranger doing his job right. He had proven that fragility does not mean worthlessness. It was a silent act of kindness, a testament that true conservation is built on patience, respect, and quiet human actions, not sensational heroism. This albino lion cub now became a symbol of hope, a reminder that we all carry our weaknesses, our vulnerabilities. But with a little help, a connection, and a second chance, we can all thrive. This video is not about difference. It is about acceptance and unconditional love. Just as Kian was returned to his pride, his story is a call for us to connect with the fragile, vulnerable parts of our own communities and protect what is most precious in the natural world. Kian's story ends here, where he belongs, among his family and the wild bush. But the story of kindness never ends. Have you recently witnessed an act of kindness that restored your faith in humanity? Share your story in the comments below. We want to hear it. If Kian's story touched your heart, please hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. We share a new story of connection and hope from the wild every week. Thank you for watching. Keep the kindness and keep the hope.